I know you're looking for the Two Fish by Firewire. Is this fish the ultimate groveling daily driver twin fin for you? Stick around and find out. So I've been lucky enough to be blessed with the 5'11" Two Fish coming in at 38 liters and 22 and change width, and it's pretty darn thick. I appreciate you, Firewire. Shout out. Thank you for letting me borrow and demo the board. This will be a review. I will also be doing a fin versus test. I'm gonna get a bunch of sessions on this on a bunch of different fins. We will have the Tomo Keels versus the Machado Twins versus the Kelly Endorphin Twins. So it's gonna be a pretty epic battle. These fins are pretty different. The Tomo Max Keels in size large, which I think would probably work better for me with this board, or kind of a mix of the Kelly 2+2 Endorphin and the Machado Twins. It's kind of like combines the two, which is nice because I typically like a more upright fin, and Rob's fins are kind of more the keel-esque usually. And for me, I still haven't perfected riding keels, but the Tomo Max Keels in the Revo Max, per example, ride really epic. Could be the sweet spot. So I'm excited for sure about those. Alright guys, first impressions are it is a slidey machine. There's like a serious scoop right here of this just single concave that just really scoops right here, and it is slidey and loose. This is how twin fins, I always remember them feeling like, just extremely loose, extremely slidey. But this thing is quick and nimble AF. I mean, you go down the wave and then you get off the wave and you look back and you don't realize you just traveled like 40 yards. It felt like 5 yards. I mean, you're just flying, and it definitely takes a little bit of precise control to like hold on because you are just flying, and it is like super flat. Just the flatness is unbelievable. The single concave, it kind of runs up pretty far, and it's kind of seems like it's the whole thing, and then the top is very flat. And it's not super, deck like the other boards. It kind of just has a very flat top with slight curve at the very end of the rails, and the nose stays nice and thick up here, which is nice. The tail gets really thin at the end, but it does stay relatively thicker through this part where the wood is right here. This part's actually pretty thick, so I do like that, because if it wasn't thick enough, then it'd probably be even more slidey and skatey. So that part's nice, because if it doesn't, if it got even thinner here, then again, it would be potentially just a skim board at that point. So really great session and stoked on the board. It's definitely like a twin fin. Like, it is slidey, skatey, and one of the fastest boards ever. You are just flying. You're holding on for dear life on this thing. So this is definitely a board where you can tell Rob Machado shaped it, because you feel like Rob. And the Tomo Keels. So really, these are way skatier than I thought they were going to be. I mean, they feel completely different than in the Revo Max. It goes to show that the board and the fins combo really make a difference. That big spine and the quad B concave going on does a lot and acts as a middle fin, even maybe like kind of two more fins. The speed is there, but the hold really isn't there that much. I mean, compared to the other two sets of fins in this fin comparison, I mean, we'll see, because I haven't ridden the other ones yet, actually. I wouldn't want anything skatier or looser. These were very slidey and very borderline out of control, but again, extremely fast, and I didn't really totally slide out, but I was very close. So the I would say definitely the larges would probably be your best bet unless you're a tiny human. But we'll see how kind of the KS Endorphin Twins do, which are a little more upright. And then also Rob's fins are straight up keels. So we will see how those compare. But so far these are lightning fast, very slidey, and some hold, but not as much hold as I would have expected, considering they felt pretty holdy in the Revo Max. All right, guys, we had another sick session on the Two Fish. This time we had the Rob Machado Twins made for the board. And let me tell you, it was kind of night and day. These fins really are so far perfect for the board. Compared to the Tomo Keels and large, these had a good amount more hold and a good amount more drive, and really felt like a lot more stable, a lot more confident riding the board. And so far, the Rob Machado Keels are winning the fin battle. The Two Fish is by far one of the fastest boards I've ridden yet. It excels down the line, and you're almost trying to make sure that you can control the speed when you are flying down the line. And I can see the helium lightness kind of becoming an issue when it does get big. Today, it was a drainy low tide. It was sucking out. Keep the PG in the comments. But I noticed that the board actually did pretty well with not getting that twin fin kind of unable to hold in like the top to bottom wave. Did a really good job driving through, and even going up and hitting it and coming back down on like the closeout throwy waves. Did super well. Only one time I kind of went to hit it and nosedive, but I was flying, and it was just like an unexpected kind of hit toward the bottom because the board was going so fast, and I was like a little out of control. So I would say another really successful session out there, super fun, and was very keen and stoked. All right, guys, we're with the Two Fish, the Machado Twin Keels. The waves are looking pretty sick right now. I would say perfect conditions for the Two Fish. We got 3 to 5 foot, glassy, sunny, very twin finny, and let's get it. The Two Fish excels on days just like this magical, glorious day, when it's a little softer but still nice open faces. But just don't go too big like I tried there, because it can get a little out of control. Again, when it's nice and glassy and picturesque outside just like this is where the board comes alive. And let's say hello to Mr. Seal here, who graced me with his presence. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the board in this section, because after many sessions on it, it's really grown on me. And again, when it's waist to chest, glassy, and you need a little extra float, this thing is perfect. And you get fast down that line. It's by far the fastest board I've ridden maybe ever. And I thought the mashup was fast. What makes the board very fast is that single concave right there in the middle. Water just jets through it. And it can really accelerate right off the takeoff. And on those bottom turns like you saw there, it just shoots up the wave. And at first you do have to kind of be a little careful when you are doing big open turns and really going for broke on a turn, because it just unleashes its power and fury like there. You can push into it, it just needs kind of more of an open face to really push. Roundhouses as well on this thing are its bread and butter. Sometimes a roundhouse is a little tricky on a twin fin. There's something about this board though that it really roundhouses very well. The Rob Keels are feeling great. We still have the KS Endorfins Twin coming up later on. But in this point in Travis's evolution of his Two Fish, it would be hard to beat these fins. They feel like a match made in heaven, and for sure are better than the Tomo Keels for me in this board. It provides the hold you need, the drive, while still being very flickable, and it seems a great option for the board out the gate. Let's do a little play-by-play here. Now, backside on the Two Fish, it's definitely doable. It's not as crazy as sometimes a twin fin can be, but it's also not as easy as sometimes it can also be on some twin fins, because the swallowtail is super huge. You have to be a little more precise, but it can really just generate so much speed. And like what you saw right there, it gets a little out of control, so you have to hang on. But if you're a good enough surfer, it's pretty amazing. Another really cool thing is, as we get even more epic waves in this amazing, like once in a lifetime session with now this magic hour, is it just is so much fun doing top to bottom turns. The bottom turns on this thing are amazing, and it just, you flow so well, and as long as you keep flowing, you're just going to keep going. So I really like the board for that. It almost combines somewhat of the pocket surfing with that flowy twin fin feel. It's really nice. It just takes a little while to get used to that. What's also great about the Two Fish is the get up and go with that helium. Really has a lot of spring in the board itself, and there's really no downtime with the board. As you see in these turns right here, it's just turn, go, turn, go. And again, you're just trying to keep up with the board because it has kind of a mind of its own. Now we're slowing this down, and that doesn't look like a twin fin turn to me. That looks like a thruster turn. So you can really push this like you're riding your mashup 2+1 or your sweet potato 2+1. And as long as you have a fin that's big enough, like the Rob fin, like you're gonna be okay. So when you look side by side with these Rob fins compared to the Tomo Keels, even the Tomo Keel larges are a lot smaller, so this the surface area has a lot to do with it. Floaters as well with the Two Fish are pretty magical because it is so wide and so flat, and you're going so fast that you go to floater and it just wants to keep moving on the wave until you come back down. So floaters are a blast on this board, and this session on these Keel Twin Fins by Rob Machado really just showed me that it's just an epic combination that makes the board a lot of fun to ride. Another pretty epic thing about the Two Fish is, I think sizing wise, at first I like having more float, but I think you can undersize this one a little bit because it is so fast and so speedy. Now, one thing you got to be careful of, is, as we see it in the background here, is the swallowtail is so large that if you do go very small, the swallowtail is like 6 inches. That's a lot of just, I guess, empty space. So when you're up and riding, the board feels smaller than it is. This is the 511, and it doesn't feel like 511. It feels like a 5'8 or a 5'10. And especially when you duck dive, you have to bring your knee up a good amount because the swallowtail is so big. Also, because the swallowtail is so big, even when you put your back foot back on the board, it's not going that far back because there's 6 inches beyond the little crevice of the swallow. So it's interesting how, because it's such a deep swallow, and many people will probably downsize this a bunch, just one thing to be aware of, that the board ends up being even smaller than you think. So I think going whatever size you think, and you could go a little smaller or a little bigger and be okay. At first, when I was riding the 511 and it's at 38 liters, it seemed maybe a little boaty, but especially when the waves get bigger, I think in bigger waves, the board, it works maybe a little better, a teeny bit smaller, but when it is smaller, I like having more board for that extra float. There is kind of a size limit to the board. Once it gets to be overhead, it's almost just you're going too fast and it gets a little uncontrollable. It's not really undergunned. It's almost just like it gets up and goes, and the bigger the wave, the faster you're going to go. So it can just get a little just crazy, racy, out of control. But then if the waves are knee high and you have a slightly oversized board, then it can help you really shred the board like you're shredding a regular board on a regular wave. So it's kind of like a cheat code. It feels like you're cheating with the board, similar to the sweet potato or maybe even the Seaside. It's just so much volume up by the nose and within the board itself that it really just rides amazingly as a groveler. And you can't go wrong if you're trying to get a groveler. This is a great option to look at, and it's, you know, it's so fast and speedy. I would actually say it's probably more for an intermediate advanced. A beginner to lower intermediate probably wouldn't mind having more of like the Seaside or the sweet potato, just to have a little bit more hold and a little less of the racy, out of controlness. All right, y'all, so we're off. It's about a waist to chest high day, a little cloudy, a little muggy, but it's not stopping your boy from getting them clips. And we have the Endorphin Twins in the Two Fish. The Machado Twins so far are still the winners, but this session will prove if I'm gonna want some more upright Endorphin Kelly signature fins in there, or if Rob knows the magic needed in his board. Now the Endorphin fins are cool because it's like a 2+2. It comes with the two big regular twins with two back fins, a small and a big. The small is like a little nub, it's barely nothing. The big is a little bigger, still rather small though. And but the Two Fish ain't got no back fin slot, so it's not even an option. So it makes you think like the Endorphins, they come with the back fin. Like, is that probably the intention with them? Well, I have ridden the Endorphins on the Twinsman and they feel really great. So I think with certain twin fins, you do not need that back trailer fin with the Endorphins, but on a board like the Two Fish with no back fin, obviously, you know, there's no slot to put them, but a board like the Two Fish might need more of a Rob Super XL, XXL keel type deal. So we will see if the upright Endorphin is gonna make the Two Fish still nice and speedy, nice and flowy, and we'll see if it has a little more hold, a little less hold, how it does pivot wise. So let's get to shredding. All right, y'all, we're paddling out. We have the KS Endorphins in, and right away, we're back to that speedy, down the line life. And I'm going to announce the winner of the fin battle at the end of the video. And I appreciate everyone again for tuning in. Smash like, hit subscribe if you're appreciating this super deep dive. And this day was kind of similar to a couple of the Machado Keel Twin days, but this day, besides my camera being a teeny bit out of focus, which shame on you, Sony, was probably a little smaller than that epic day, but just as sick. And this day even was a little more top to bottom and super duper fun. And we can see that because of the bit more uprightness to the Endorphins, you can get the board a little bit more upright and a little bit more, I would say, performance surfing. It is extremely throwy, as you're seeing in these clips. And really, it's crazy because, you know, you would think that the Machado Twins, like, would be above and beyond the best, but as you're seeing in these clips, the KS fins are giving the Machado Twins a run for the money. Now, the roundhouse ability is almost upped a little bit, and the speed is, you know, it's not slower, that's for sure, but the confidence of these fins, it's right on par. It doesn't even feel that much different, like going back and forth. What I really like about the Kelly fins, that little bit of extra uprightness, when you look at them side by side and together, they're actually kind of almost a little smaller like the Tomo fins, but a little more upright. What that means is you can really turn hard in the pocket and the board isn't gonna kind of wash out on you and be a little less tracky. This wave is really sick. This is just floater climbing to infinity and beyond. And then right here, a really critical turn. I had to hold on because if I didn't land that, he would have been, you know, he would have been gone. But there's a lot going on in this wave. Precision that the KS fin has is really nice. you can really just kind of play with the board going up and down, and it just feels right. Oh, well, besides that part. But the fins do feel right at home, which, you know, after the Tomo experience putting them in, I thought, are these going to work at all? Well, they're working really great, you can see. Now the board, again, it just comes alive in these type of conditions. This day was a little more top to bottom, and as I ride the board more, it actually does pretty good in top to bottom, considering that it has that humongous tail, the huge swallow, and it's flat, and the super single concave. The more you ride the Two Fish, the more comfortable you get with it, the harder you can push it, and still be able to use it as a master groveler like right here. This wave went from nothing to something, and because I never gave up, I was able to take it to that inside and get that last hit before falling. The board is just so fast like that. It's really great at doing these crazy floaters where it's kind of like a foam climb. But the foam climb, because of the twin fin looseness, you can throw the board up and it'll kind of like sit and climb on the white water and then come back down. Then when you ride like a longboard, you can do it like right there. The tide also was extremely low this day. The more you ride the Two Fish, the better you get at it, the more you like it. The more that it has filled this spot in your quiver that is hard to replace with another board. It's a lot more of a daily driver than I initially thought when I first rode it. Here's a great example of the foam climb I was talking about, where you can throw it up and it'll kind of sit in that white water and then be able to bring it back down because it's so maneuverable. But you have to be a little careful because right there it's so light you can throw it up and it can just get taken away. And it excels at those bottom turns into those top kind of holdy turns. And because of that pivot fin, it was able to hold really well against that face. And you can still just master grovel into the inside, really keeping that flow state and maximize that wave to get all your money's worth for that session. It just feels so good. That push and that hold never gets old, and this board for sure grows on you. The more you ride it, the more you enjoy it, the more fun it is. That right there was another perfect example of the bottom turn. It holds, you foam climb, it holds up there, then you come back down. It's this one fluid motion that, because of the deep single concave and the twin fin, it's like hard to replicate that in another board. The speed you generate from the Two Fish is unlike any other board still. I mean, the closest I've gotten to this speed is the mashup, which is 3 fins. So just that lack of center fin, you can really fly. And then this grovel's better than the mashup. So it's almost like taking the Seaside, the mashup, Machado, putting them all together and getting the speediest board out of the bunch. That can also grovel extremely well. As you're seeing, as the tide kind of kept getting lower, it did get a little not as sick as it was originally, but then there would be these pockets like this one where you could really just go up and throw the board against that suck up, and it held really great. The KS fins hold a little better than the Rob fins in those kind of turns. That turn especially is where the board kind of is a little harder to surf. When you throw the tail, it wants to keep turning around. So you have to kind of hold on for dear life and land it like that backside turn. And almost not baby the turn, but be aware that the harder you push it, the kind of more throwy, more loose the tail is going to become. and some of these lefts really got fun and nice and skatey and flowy. And as long as you got your seatbelt on, you can make these sucky low tide kind of waves in a board that typically wouldn't be made for this stuff. So the Two Fish really is a magical board that, as long as you know what you're doing and your skill level's there, it can be your daily driver. And as long as the waves don't get above 6 foot, it's gonna hold and it's gonna do just fine. And right there was the perfect example of that little foam climb. And I think that was an amazing session that I'm super stoked on. So let's get to this fin verdict and we'll wrap up the overall review of the Two Fish. The Endorfins by K-Slates perform, I would say, outstanding in the Two Fish. For me, I'm gonna have to give them the winner of the fin battle. Sorry, Rob. I do love those Machado twins as well, and they were almost tied, but for me and my style of surfing, I prefer the extra bit of pivot I can get out of the Endorphin. There's just something about them where, like, the hold, especially on backside, was just a teeny bit more, and I didn't feel like I was sacrificing much speed. Also, these fins are just so light, and I really just have come to start to really appreciate what these fins are. Just the lightness, something about the flex. It really is a really nice kind of template / material that Kelly Slater has made with the whole range of Endorphin fins. So great job here. And again, it was a tough call, but I'm gonna have to give her first place. And I know I shouldn't make this as like outlandish, but I'm giving first place to the Endorphin twins for me on the Two Fish, and then a very close, pretty much tied Machado twins. And then third place, which actually didn't perform as well as I thought they were, the Tomo Keels. I think due to them just being a good amount smaller than the other two fins. To sum it up, the Two Fish is too sick. This board has speed like none other, and it really is a treat when you get some clean, glassy waves with a little bit of push. You are in surfing heaven. But when it's a little smaller and even a little junkier, the board grovels really good as well. There's a lot of flick and throw you can have with the board. That tail gets nice and thin, but it maintains a lot of thickness through the top end of the board. You can check out my Firewire / Machado Kato review right here, or check out my Firewire / Tomo Designs surfboard review, the Rob Max, right there. Till next time, we out. Peace.